Welcome back to DCS Debrief, this time a series on BFM, Basic Fighter Manoeuvres. I should say up front, I'm not a fighter pilot. I don't have experience doing this in real life. I've got a little bit of experience in the game and I have a little bit of relevant experience, so hopefully I can use some of that to explain some of the concepts in this video series. So starting off then, this introduction video, we're going to talk about what BFM is, what its aims and objectives are, why it's useful, and cover some of the language to help you understand future videos. So starting off then, what is BFM? BFM stands for Basic Fighter Manoeuvres. It's the fundamental building blocks of air combat manoeuvring. It's the methodology and the mechanics of engaging other aircraft within the visual range arena. So it's not using radar missiles out at long range. It's what happens after that if you find yourself merged with another aircraft. And as I say, it's the fundamentals. It's not advanced stuff like many versus many. It is just typically 1v1. It's not a series of manoeuvres that are carried out in sequence or in turn between two aircraft. It's more of the practical application of the theoretical geometry and physics to enable you to understand what's happening, to predict what will happen next, and to employ weapons against another player, or to get away from that situation and live to fight another day. So the aim of this series is to give the best explanation that I can with my understanding of BFM, to enable other people to practice it in the game and to improve, to allow a common understanding of terms and fundamentals, and to add to the body of knowledge that is already available online so that it's open to challenge and open to improvement by other community members. So please take it in the spirit that it's meant. It's not authoritative, it doesn't come from a particular position of understanding how it works in real life, and if it's anything like other tactics and procedures, it actually is applied in the game slightly differently than in real life to be successful anyway. So please take it in the spirit it's meant. It's only really relevant within the game. The objectives for this video then, I'll introduce Basic Fighter Manoeuvres, BFM. I'll explain what it is, what it's used for. This video will introduce the basic tenets and the language of BFM so that you have clear comprehension of what you're trying to achieve and can understand the techniques used to achieve it. And you'll need to understand that language to make sense of future videos and some of the other literature available online. So why is BFM useful? It's rarely, if ever, entered into by choice. It's a situation forced by error or circumstance, be that poor situational awareness or the rules of engagement, where aircraft have found themselves in close proximity to one another within visual range, and the situation dictates that one of them needs to kill the other. So it's an important skill because it's the only thing that will keep you alive in that situation. Because it's grounded in physics and in geometry, very little has changed in the last few decades. There have been advancements in weapons technology and expansions in weapons envelopes, but the fundamentals have not changed very much. So why is it necessary? You know, modern fighters, very long-range weapons these days, they can detect, track and engage targets well outside of visual range. Why are we still talking about basic fighter manoeuvres and dogfighting in this way? Well, fighters' weapons are fixed to fire forward. The gun in fighters is fixed to fire forward because it's very, very complex to get a trainable gun onto a platform like a fighter. They're going to be large, unwieldy, heavy pieces of equipment, and it's just easier to maneuver the aircraft into a firing solution than it is to try and maneuver the gun. So the gun's fixed to fire forward. So what about the missiles? The missiles are maneuverable. We've had very maneuverable guided missiles for several years now, and because of the intercept geometry that missiles use, the greatest probability of kill is still going to be when you fire that missile at a target ahead of you from that target's rear quarter. You know, there are very, very good, very capable modern missiles with high probabilities of kill that can be fired well off bore sight. Even those missiles are going to be more effective when they're fired towards a target ahead of the firing aircraft at the rear aspect of the target. So with that in mind, the aircraft that's firing must be manoeuvred to place the shooter within weapons parameters for whatever weapon they're employing, be that missiles or the gun. The aircraft must have a stable firing platform. Even for missiles, you need to satisfy those weapons parameters, so that necessitates a stable firing platform. In order to deliver a stable firing platform, range, angles and closure must be controlled by the firing aircraft. Any manoeuvre by the target is going to alter one or all of those things. So the art of BFM is getting range, angles and closure under control inside weapon release parameters and maintaining those things under control so that if your weapon misses, you still have a follow-on option. So fighters must be capable of solving these range, angle and closure problems, or if they are forced into the defensive, to be able to create them for the enemy. And this is basic fighter maneuvers. So the tenets of BFM then, first of all, arrive at the fight with an advantage. So you need to use whatever sensors, whatever capabilities you have before that fight starts to build your situational awareness and to ensure that the fight starts with you in an advantageous position. Ideally, you want to start out from a position behind the target aircraft with him unaware that you're there. That's not always possible, but you need to do your best to arrive at the fight with an advantage. Once the fight's underway, you need to maintain an offensive position, and you need to do this by maneuvering the aircraft within a particular portion of sky so that you can get to a position where you can employ weapons, and he can't get to a position where he can employ weapons at you. If you can't maintain an offensive position, then you're at risk of being shot because there's a chance that the tables will be turned on you and the aircraft that you're shooting at will become the aircraft shooting at you, and that's obviously not desirable. So if you can't maintain an offensive position, escape. If you can't escape and you can't maintain an offensive position, you're in a really bad place, and some fairly significant things have already gone wrong for you in this situation. So if you can't escape and you can't maintain an offensive position, you need to neutralize the fight. If you can't do that, then you need to deny the other pilot the opportunity to shoot at you with whatever weapons they're equipped with, be that missiles or gun. If you can't prevent them from shooting at you, the day is not going well for you. If you can't deny them the opportunity to shoot at you and you're getting shot at, the final thing that you can do to try and stay alive is to defeat those weapons that are in the air. Be that missiles, be that gun rounds, you need to fly your aircraft to minimize the probability kill of those weapon systems. So to summarize, arrive at the fight with an advantage, maintain an offensive position. If you can't maintain an offensive position, escape. If you can't escape, neutralize. If you can't neutralize, then deny shots. If you can't deny shots, defeat the weapon. So let's go over some definitions then. The following videos are going to deal specifically and exclusively with 1 versus 1. So we only have to worry about 2 aircraft. And we're going to give those aircraft names so that we always know which one we're talking about. The aircraft that we are going to imagine flying is going to be the fighter. The enemy aircraft, not always the one being shot at, but the aircraft that we are imagining flying against is going to be the bandit. Sometimes the fighter will be in an offensive position, sometimes the bandit will be in an offensive position. Fighters will be described in blue, bandits will be described in red, not because I have any particular national affiliations, it's just the way I'm used to seeing it presented, and it's the way that they're presented in the majority of literature online. So let's get into some further definitions then. Some of the things that you'll hear people talk about that aren't necessarily well explained. 3 to 9 line. Pilots talk in clock codes, 12 o'clock being directly ahead, 6 o'clock being directly behind. If you imagine a clock face superimposed over an aircraft, the 3 o'clock will be 90 degrees in the right hand and the 9 o'clock will be 90 degrees to the left hand. The line that runs between the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock position is the 3 to 9 line, and that delineates the forward aspect and the rear aspect of the aircraft. When we talk about aspect, we should define that as well. Aspect is an angular measurement from another aircraft, in this case the bandit, in degrees from the tail. So if you are at 0 aspect with respect to the bandit, you are directly behind that aircraft. Doesn't matter which direction you're pointing. If you're at 0 aspect, you're directly behind. You could be going directly away, you could be going 90 degrees, you could be going straight towards it. If you're at 0 aspect, then you are directly in the bandit 6 o'clock. That angle builds as you go round to the 12 o'clock, to the right or to the left, up to 180 degrees, which is the maximum aspect, and that would be directly ahead of the bandit. Again, doesn't matter which way you're facing, could be nose to nose, could be nose to tail. If you're ahead of the bandit, then you are at 180 degrees aspect. So when you hear low aspect referred to, that is typically behind the bandit. If you're high aspect, then you're out in front of the bandit. So when we talk about high aspect BFM, we're typically talking where both aircraft are at high aspect to one another, so each is out in front of the other, and therefore logically they are nose to nose. So following on from that, then we have two angular references from our aircraft, angle off nose and angle off tail. And these are measurements from our nose or from our tail to the bandit. So angle off nose is simply an angular measurement from our 12 o'clock measured to the bandit's position. If we have a low angle off nose, it means that the bandit is out in front of us. If we have high angle off nose, it means the bandit is a long way to one side or the other. Angle off tail, similar concept, taken from the opposite end of the aircraft and typically used when we are defensive. So angle off tail will be a measurement from our 6 o'clock round to the bandit. If we have a low angle off tail, it means the bandit is very close to or in our 6 o'clock. And if we have high angle off tail, that means that the bandit is further around towards our forward quarter. The control zone is a notional area behind an aircraft. It's so called because whoever's in the control zone really controls the fight. It's going to be impossible for a target aircraft to turn and threaten an attacking aircraft that is inside the target aircraft's control zone. If you think between 4,000 to 2,000 feet behind the target aircraft in a truncated cone, then that is typically where the control zone is. Any further back than that, and the target aircraft may be able to turn and threaten the attacker. Any closer than that, and a reversal by the target aircraft may generate an overshoot. And the attack window is the point in space and time from which an attacking aircraft can carry out a turn to enter the control zone of a target aircraft with range, angles, and closure under control. And we'll describe how you identify the attack window in a future video. Overshooting. There are three types of overshoot. There's a flight path overshoot, whereby the path of an offensive aircraft crosses that of a defensive aircraft. And typically, flight path overshoot, if you're overshooting in this manner, you'll aim to do so through the adversary's control zone to minimize the possibility of them reversing the roles. The second type of overshoot is an in-close overshoot, and this is a flight path overshoot that occurs with high angle off tail inside the near portion of the defender's control zone, so within 2,000 feet behind the defending aircraft. And if this happens with a high angle off tail, then it's going to be relatively easy for the defending aircraft to reverse their turn and either neutralize or gain the advantage. Finally, there's a 3 to 9 line overshoot, which is simply where the attacking aircraft flies ahead of the defender's 3 to 9 line, and that results in a role reversal. You know, you're flying out in front of the guy who you're trying to shoot, then he or she is going to have an opportunity to shoot you. One type of overshoot can lead to another. For example, an in-close overshoot where the attacker flies through the defender's flight path with high angle off tail. That attacker then reverses their turn, reorientates their 3 to 9 line. In doing so, then that may force the attacking aircraft in front of the defender's 3 to 9 line, reversing the role. So an in-close overshoot could, in that circumstance, also become a 3 to 9 line overshoot. We'll discuss that in more detail later on. So let's talk about types of fight. And broadly speaking, there are two types of fight in BFM. There is a single circle or one circle fight, and there's a two circle fight with two aircraft. We said we were going to only talk about two aircraft. You can only have a maximum of two circles being described in the sky. The circles of the title here refer to the turning circles of the aircraft. So where you have two aircraft that turn towards one another, both their turning circles describe in space a single circle, one circle together. Where two aircraft pass each other and turn in opposite directions, then if they each turn through 360 degrees to a second merge, then that will describe a figure of 8 or two circles in the sky. So a single circle can also be described as nose to nose because both aircraft are turning towards each other's noses. Two circle fight can be described as nose to tail because each aircraft is orientated such that its nose points towards the tail of the other aircraft. Finally then, Last piece of nomenclature for you to remember, an energy excursion. An energy excursion is the conscious decision to spend a large amount of energy, typically bringing you down below your optimum turning airspeed. We'll talk about types of turn in the next video, but an energy excursion is going to be a degree of airspeed that you bleed off because you turn the aircraft more tightly or more rapidly in order to gain a weapons employment opportunity or to defeat the weapons employment opportunity from an attacking aircraft. So that's the end of the first video. Quite a lot to take on board. Hopefully not too long and boring. Lots of new words, maybe some familiar ones. In the next video, we'll get into types of turns. We'll look at rate of turn versus radius of turn and brake turns. And then we can start getting into the meat and potatoes of what techniques we can use when we're maneuvering against another aircraft in the visual arena. Thanks very much for watching. Please click like and subscribe if you want to see more. If you don't, then feel free not to. And if you really thought it was that bad, then feel free to hit the thumbs down as well. At least lets me know what I'm getting right and wrong. Thanks very much. See you soon.